Welcome to Strait Science. This is a evening seminar series put on by Northwest Campus, University of Alaska Fairbanks, and Alaska Sea Grant, also University of Alaska Sea Grant, coming to you from the home office. And given what's happening in the Bering Strait region with COVID, it's likely to be like this for a bit longer. That said, tonight we have what we always like is when people join forces. And so we've got two different cruises joining forces as they go north, and they're both long-time efforts. And so it's really going to be interesting to hear what Catherine Berchok will tell us, and also what Jackie, I think you're on the spot later the fall, Jackie, for giving the results. Is that right?
Happy to do it. We'll set that up later.
All right. So if you have any comments, you want to join in. Normally we do questions at the end, but I'll be monitoring the chat box. And if people are joining who don't know how to use Zoom, the chat is, if you go to the bottom, there's a little cartoon bubble and it says the word chat. You click on that, you'll get a screen somewhere on top of your other screens, and you can type your message in. We don't have any callers, but know that if we do get a caller, they will get the highest priority in the question line and everything else, because out here, it's really hard to be a caller on a Zoom call. And so priority for the Zoom, priority for the caller. All right, with that, we have Catherine Berchok. Catherine Berchok is no stranger to Strait Science, and she was just at BAT in April talking about her work as an acoustician for the Passive Acoustics group at the Alaska Fisheries Science Center in the Marine Mammal Lab. And that's really interesting work. And that was all, that was her talk in April. Tonight, she's been tapped to bring it all home and talk about these two long-term efforts to look at change in the Bering, Chukchi, and Beaufort Seas. And with that, we'll let you take it away, Catherine.
Thank you. I'm going to turn my video off and get this window out of the way, so hopefully you guys can see the talk.
And one other thing, I don't know how many other people, because I have a very small screen right now, are on, but you may want to shut your video off. It does, if you're not the presenter, it does help with the bandwidth out here if we're not cycling a lot of video. With that, I'm going to turn it off until you need me there, Catherine. Okay. Thank you. Take it away.
Hi, so my name is Catherine Berchok. Like Gay says, I work for NOAA in Seattle, and today we are having a heat wave, which houses like mine were never built to stand. So currently it is like 87 degrees in my house. So if I just pass out, just yell my name a few times and maybe I'll come to. I've got all the fans off to keep the noise down in here. So I am very much looking forward to coming up to the Arctic soon. So for our cruise, we have two principal investigators. So Jackie Grebmeyer for the University of Maryland, who's also going to be serving as our chief scientist, and Phyllis Stabino from the Pacific Marine Environmental Lab at NOAA here in Seattle. And then in addition to them, we have a science crew that has scientists from the University of Maryland, Alaska Fairbanks, Laval, and Woods Hole, in addition to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA scientists as well. And as a warning, these are the same slides I presented to the AEWC recently, but since we have a little bit more time here, I'll be able to elaborate more. And then we have many of our scientists on the line right now if there's any questions on their particular topics that I'm not going to be able to answer for you. So please take advantage of them being here. So this is the DBO EcoFOCI survey. Like Gay said, it is a combination of two different research groups. So the DBO is the Distributed Biological Distributed Biological Observatory, and it tracks changes in the environment and ecosystem. And it has been a cooperative multinational effort since 2010 to sample at distinct sampling station lines indicated on this logo as the red dots from St. Lawrence Island all the way up to Uktiavik and into the Canadian Beaufort. And along each of these lines, there's sampling, measurements taken, observations, and moorings. So in being able to have all these research vessels sampling these lines throughout the open water season, we're able to collect more information than one group could on their own. The other group is the EcoFOCI group, which stands for Ecosystems and Fisheries Oceanography Coordinated Investigations. And this is an internal NOAA collaboration between the fisheries people and the oceanography people. And they're studying changes in the environment, fish and shellfish, marine mammals, seabirds, harmful algal blooms, ocean acidification, you name it. And again, there's sampling and moorings and new technologies for these moorings. So our survey goals are to track changes in the Arctic ecosystem. We want to be able to understand the changes in the physical, biological, and chemical environment over time and how the entire food web responds to these changes. And we'll be doing that in 3 ways. First, we'll be collecting measurements and samples from the water and seafloor at set sampling locations. And on the next map, that's going to be represented by the green circles. We're also going to be deploying moorings that collect ecosystem information year-round. And some of these have been out for many years and decades. And these are really represented by the pink circles and red triangles. And then also there's going to be an observer from US Fish and Wildlife that's going to be counting seabirds and making marine mammal observations. So if you were at the AEWC meeting, you learned that our cruise was delayed because our ship was stuck in traffic at the Panama Canal. We can report now that it is through the canal and on its way up to Seattle to load and come up to Alaska. So our tentative schedule at the moment is we're going to be doing a northbound leg and then turning around and coming south. So the northbound leg, Gay, can you see the thing on the top here? Should I be getting rid of my little band, or are you not seeing that?
No, I can see where it says part 1, northbound Seward.
Okay, so you don't have my mute and stuff on the top. Good.
No, looks good.
Good. Okay, so we're going to be departing Seward, Alaska on September 2nd. And the plan is to basically hightail it as fast as we can up to the northeast Chukchi Sea to work our sampling lines and moorings off of Wainwright and Uktiavik. We will be turning around on September 15th and heading back south. So we'll be hitting some moorings off of Icy Cape, coming back down off of the DBO3 area off of Point Hope, and getting through Bering Strait on the way south by September 18th. Then we're going to be heading into the Bering Sea. We'll be passing out of the Gamble 50 nautical mile zone by September 20th. And then we're going to be doing all these sampling lines, these green circles that are making this squiggle all the way down into the southern Bering Sea. Back through Unimak Pass, then over to Kodiak by October 3rd is the plan. So during this cruise, I will be responsible for sending out daily emails on behalf of Jackie, and I'll be sending that out to the distribution list I used last year. If you would like to be added or removed from this list, or you know somebody who should be added or removed, please reach out to me at my email here, or you could let Gay know and she can let me know. As a note, I will be also directly communicating with the local AEWC contact to adjust sampling times as needed if any subsistence hunting is ongoing. The information I'll be providing in the daily reports is the same as last year. I'll be giving our location, the activities we've just completed, and the ones we've planned for the next day or two, what our weather and sea conditions are, and as requested by the AEWC, I also be giving out our bottom temperatures if we've collected them in that day, and any species that are out of the ordinary for us. So the question I'm posing to y'all is if there's any other information of interest you would like to see included in the daily reports, please reach out to me, either after the talk today, or you can email me, or as I'm sending out the emails throughout the cruise, just send me an email to that email as well, and I can add it in. And to give you an idea of what types of information we'll be collecting, to see what's of interest that you'd like in these daily reports, I'm going to be going through a series of slides to let you know what we'll be doing on this cruise. So the first one is seafloor sampling. This is Jackie and Lee's domain, and they're here to answer any questions if you have them. So about 45 different stations, they'll be deploying this grabber, and it basically gets lowered onto the seafloor. And when it gets there, it takes a scoop of the seafloor up, and they bring it up onto the deck, and they do a lot of sieving. as you can see on the top right there. And then they go through and somebody's picking through what's collected and for the animals. And you can see things like clams and amphipods here. And basically what they're trying to do is find out what's living on the bottom and how many of them there are. They'll also be collecting information on the sediments, so what size it is, which is really important because this determines where the food for things like walrus and bearded seals and gray whales can live. And this has been shifting over time. They're also looking at the nutrient content of the sediments and whether harmful algal blooms are present. And I'll be getting to this in a few slides. Again, the underlying questions are what's changing, where it's changing, and to try to have the ability to forecast what the impacts of these changes are going to be. So the next thing we'll be collecting are water column samples of the animals, and this is about 90 different stations, and they'll be deploying this thing called a bongo net. It's on the left, and basically it's 2 round nets that look like bongo drums. And this goes up and down through the water column and collects a sample of what's living there. And so it comes up, and the same as the seafloor sediments, it's got to be sieved and strained, and it's collected into jars so it can be processed later. And there will also be somebody on board that's going to do a rapid assessment of just a little subsample to kind of get an idea for what has been changing and what's where. Again, like with the C4 samples, it's the same sort of information, what's there and how many there are in each spot. And then some of these animals are going to be collected to measure for the presence of the harmful algal bloom toxins. And the scientists studying this just want to know how things are changing in the Arctic. Along with the water column, we'll also be sampling at about 140 different stations for chemical and physical properties. So this instrument's called a CTD. In the center of this circle is a electronic instrument that gives us an idea of the layering of the water column, so how the temperature and the salinity is set up. And then around this instrument are water bottles that can take samples at different depths. So this water comes up and goes into bottles and can be processed for nutrients and oxygen, carbon and chlorophyll, and also for pH, which is really useful for ocean acidification, and also environmental DNA. And the thought here is what is changing and where it's changing. And with the environmental DNA, it'll let us see what kinds of new species are coming into the region. Yeah. The water bottles also bring up samples, which can go through this really fancy instrument on the top right, which is basically a robot. And so the scientist puts a little squirt of seawater from these bottles into this machine, and it basically squeezes them into a single file line. And the instrument takes a picture of each algae going through and identifies it. And this can be used for several things. First, these results are going to be linked to satellite ocean color images to improve the information we can get from these remotely collected sources of data that don't require a boat to be out at sea. And then it also can be used to aid in identifying the harmful algal blooms. So when Lisa sees the presence of some of those algal species, she'll let the person that's doing the harmful algal blooms know, and we'll probably collect more data at that spot. So getting to harmful algal blooms, I'm very glad to see Kathy here so she can answer questions. What scientists are looking for is where the blooms are, how toxic they are, how the toxins are transferred through the food web to fish, marine mammals, and seabirds, and what doses of toxin can cause health impacts to the wildlife and what those health impacts are. So there's 2 types in your area. The round one is Alexandrium, and this can cause paralytic shellfish poisoning. The skinny long one is Pseudonychia, which can cause amnesic shellfish poisoning, which is a mouthful for me to say. And the bottom left shows a figure of where there were high levels of domoic acid from this algae in 2018. What we are also looking for is what environmental conditions can cause more toxic conditions. Specifically, that little round Alexandrium has a life stage where it can make cysts that fall into the ocean floor. and stay in the sediments. And when conditions are right, the cysts can germinate from the sediments into the water column and start a new bloom. And these cysts can accumulate over time in the sediments. And this figure in the bottom right shows where those levels were high in 2019, I believe it was. One factor needed for the germination is the right temperatures. So as the deep water warms on the bottom, these cysts are now able to germinate more. So warmer temperatures mean faster germination rates, so more potential for toxic blooms. And this is a concern for your region because some of the highest cyst densities in the whole world are occurring in the Arctic in your region. So it's something to definitely pay attention to. And before this talk, Gay was talking about how the bottom, the fishery people are measuring bottom temperatures that are around 8 degrees Celsius in your area right now. So while all this is going on, there will be a Seabird observer making underway measurement or underway observations from the bridge while the ship is moving. And they're going to be trying to determine what the different species are and how many there are in each spot. And if any of you are hunters out there, you know that the birds are really useful for finding where the food is. So putting all the sightings together over time, you get these maps like on the right here. And this shows 2 different species. That the top is a surface feeding bird, the black-legged kittiwake. And the bottom is a more deeper feeder, the murre. And with the darker red on these maps showing where there was more of them seen, you can sort of see where the food is in the water column. For the kittiwakes being on the surface, closer to Russia there. And then the thick-billed murres are more in the area north of the Bering Strait. Sorry about that. The Seabird observer will also be recording marine mammals, but not doing a formal marine mammal watch. We didn't have enough spots to be able to put a marine mammal observer on this cruise due to COVID restrictions. So while the sampling stations let us cover a really wide area, even with that DBO collaboration with all the international vessels sampling as they pass by, the time frame of those samples is limited. So moorings offer us the chance to make year-round collections of data. Many of these moorings have been recovered and redeployed since 2007, and they host many instruments, many that measure those same properties that are on that CTD for the chemical and physical measurements. And these are important because they help us understand how the environment is changing through time and when seasonal events are changing. There's also instruments on these moorings that can measure ice thickness, listen for the presence of marine mammals and man-made noise, and measure currents. And these currents are important to measure because they can control where the sediment size, the different sediment sizes are washing to, and they can carry heat, nutrients, and animals into the Arctic. And these are just an example of some of the different moorings that we have deployed. So one thing moorings haven't been able to do until recently is measure what falls to the seafloor. So this instrument that goes out on the ecosystem mooring from the University of Alaska Fairbanks off of Wainwright is a sediment trap. And basically this sits there, and if you can look on the right, there's a little round disc on the bottom and that rotates, and samples are collected year round. And anything that falls through the water column is going to be collected into this little bottle, whether that's algae or zooplankton or the poop from the zooplankton. And it monitors the size and timing of the biological events in relation to changes in the environment. So this is a really neat new type of instrument. So the arrow on here I just put on to kind of give you a general feeling. This is the long-term bottom temperatures at that mooring off of Wainwright from 2011 to 2020. And as you can see, they're gradually increasing over time. And remember that those harmful algal bloom cysts can come out of the sediment and trigger a toxic bloom with an increase in temperature. So this is really important to be paying attention to where this is happening and when. And this is some of the data from my work. Although moorings can collect information only on a small area, usually about 10 nautical miles around each spot. Positioning multiple moorings throughout a region allows us to track where changes are occurring. So here is a plot showing the presence of bowhead whales from 2016 to 2017, from August of one year to August of the next. And I've picked this year because it was the one where we heard bowheads off of Wainwright and Uktiavik into mid-January. The row colors of each row match the colors on the map, and they're positioned from north to south on this plot. The blue squiggly line on the big plot is the percent ice concentration. So it starts with the open water season, moves to the ice season, and then back to the open water season on each of these rows. And the big black V shape that you can see if you squint your eyes is the bowheads migrating from Uktiavik in that purple on the top left, down through Bering Strait, which is the orange, and basically overwintering just southwest of St. Lawrence Island down there in the red before the ice comes in. And then right before the ice leaves, they're migrating back up from the red all the way back up to the purple on the right. So this is kind of easy to see because it's an animal that's moving through the area, but the same type of tracking of information can be done for all of the properties we measure on the moorings, whether it's temperature or currents or nutrients. Another example of how spreading these moorings over a wide area can be beneficial are these things called pop-up floats or puffs. So these are going to be measuring the bottom temperatures in the Bering Sea. And there are all these squares here on the map on the bottom right. And it's allowing us to track this thing called the cold pole in the Bering Sea. And this cold pole is important for the Arctic because it serves as a corridor for Arctic species like krill and Arctic cod to come up into the Arctic, but it also acts as a barrier to some of the non-Arctic species such as pollock and Pacific cod. So knowing where that is and being able to predict what's coming up into the Arctic will be important. So again, our goal is to track changes in the ecosystem. And as residents of the Arctic, you are living these changes. So we would like to pose the question of how we can be better partners to y'all. What of this information would be useful to you and how would you like to receive it? And do you want any additional information in our daily reports? So any questions along those lines, you can write me again at catherine.berchok@noaa.gov. And if I don't know the answers to them, I can reach out to somebody who does. So that is all I have for this talk. Thank you for your attention. Again, our cruise is going to be going northbound September 2nd through the 15th from Seward to Uktiavik, and then turning around September 15th and coming back down to Kodiak, arriving on October 3rd. Thank you for your attention and would really appreciate questions from everybody. We do have all the scientists from the cruise on the line to answer anything that I cannot. So with that, Gay, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Great, and thank you very much, Catherine. It looks like it's going to be quite an extensive cruise. Stop share. Okay. And sorry about that hair comment earlier, but I do like it. And we also have, and I want to say we have KNOM on the line too, and I wanted to give them a shout out as well as Gnome Nugget because they'll be carrying the message of the cruise forward. And then we will have Jackie, who is, wave your hand, Jackie. Jackie Grebmeyer is the other, and Phyllis Stabino, right there. And they will be the chief scientists on board. And so I believe we will be hearing the results of the presentation or the results of your cruise, excuse me, later this fall when it's more convenient. And that'll be really interesting. And I actually think that is a great way of how to be a better partner. But I've got some questions, but I'm going to hold off. Does anyone else in the audience have questions? KNOM Gnome Nugget, don't hold back.
Maybe you should start it off, Gay.
I will. Well, number one, hitting a mooring. Just my first mental was the ship is going to hit a mooring. But that just means you're going to actually go through the mooring and re-instrument it, give it new batteries, get the data off it and all that kind of stuff. So that's how it'll be. just to clear that up, because I was like, ooh. For info that's needed, oh my gosh, speaking for Sea Grant, I guess, in this particular case, I don't know. I see Fish and Wildlife was on your logo, so they must be on board maybe as an observer to look at birds. Any marine mammal observers or?
Liz Levinsky.
Well, no, the only thing, as Catherine was saying, Liz Levinsky will be on from Fish and Wildlife, but she'll do
Yeah.
some sidebar marine mammals. But we were limited due to COVID. The number, it's a total of 15 on the cruise, so we couldn't bring
Right.
as many. Yeah.
No, and I'm glad you guys are joining forces. Just so you know, the COVID is taking off in the Bering Strait region. We're at 130 cases right now. So
Right.
as of yesterday.
Right.
So birds, marine mammals, and trash. We're having a bit of a marine mammal die-off, uptick in regional deaths. And so that will be of interest. And Liz Lebunsky's already aware of that. And so she'll be probably primed for that. But people will want to know if you're seeing that kind of thing. And the trash, you probably won't see trash, but if you do see something, we just got a first report from one of our communities of a pristine beverage bottle. It looks like they just was literally just finished used. It has no scratches on it. It's very nice. It washed up at in our region today. So last year, that's how it started, and then we got all the trash. So that any of that sort of stuff is incredibly helpful. Sea surface temperatures. Are you going to be providing that, you guys, in your?
Yeah, so sea surface temperature is something that we can definitely do if we're not actually putting the CTD into the water. Bottom temperatures might not be something we can give every day, but every
Right.
time we collect it, we will be giving those.
I know there's a whole host of people that have been watching, Rick Toman with UAF's Alaska Climate Assessment Policy Program. He's putting out these maps for the region all the time on satellite-driven sea surface temperatures. So people have gotten into watching that, and I think that's helped make it a lot more friendly, and people want to know the sea surface temperatures. And certainly it's watching what's happening with the, I put it in the chat box, the map, the latest map on bottom temperatures. It's a little stunning to see that the hottest water in the Bering Sea is in the Norton Sound region. And you have a question from KNOM in the chat box. Do you know about some more sources that anyone can read about the environmental sciences of this region? Also, how can the regular person who is interested in the sciences get more involved with current studies, possibly try to help if they can?
Jackie's just sending a note to offer to talk a little bit with KNOM and give
Terrific.
a website and a few things like that.
Thing
How is that?
Yeah, I would just add that we will have a flow-through system on one of the science bands, so sea surface temperature, but also I think there's going to be collections for the harmful algal bloom, from sea surface as we go on this cruise. So so we'll be able to get some real-time data too. So Catherine might be able to say that on her daily log, to say sea surface temperature is this when we're going through.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. KNOM, does that, or Gnome Nugget, does that help you with Jackie with her, she's given the website and offering to go deeper, dig deeper for those kind of questions. Is that helpful? It must be.
They'll
Yes.
figure it out. For
No,
sure.
it's in the chat
thank
box.
you,
Yes,
is what
thank
they
you.
say.
And there's also the EcoFOCI information on the NOAA site, so you might send some link to that, Catherine, if you just the general Arctic page for NOAA, so that could be useful for them too.
Okay.
I think,
Phyllis,
Catherine,
do you have
people
that
are,
for you?
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Phyllis if she's got her EcoFOCI site, because I'm not actually part of EcoFOCI.
There
Oh,
is a
you're
website
muted.
for, there is a website for the EcoFOCI. Try
Yeah.
to get it.
And Phyllis, you're muted, so.
It's high tech stuff. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I think the other thing that we could probably provide that might be of interest is, for instance, there's a mooring southwest of Nome, kind of between Nome and St. Lawrence. That has collected a time series of temperature, hopefully, for last year. And it might be interesting just to see what the temperatures were, bottom temperatures were for the last year. And that's something we could probably send to you, Gay, or whoever, if they have an interest in it.
Yes, that would be wonderful. I'm just putting in the chat box your EcoFOCI website.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Because I must admit, the extreme temperatures on the bottom near Nome right now is really shocking, of how they got that warm with a relatively cold Bering Sea. So I'll be interested to see the mooring results to see if we can trace where that heat came from.
It would be great. It has been a sort of it's been a difficult summer for the Seward Peninsula inhabitants. We are at, I think, 250% over our annual rainfall for the month of July. So we have a tremendous, tremendous freshwater lens that we're pushing out. Water temperatures, sea surface temperatures on the 3rd were 14.5 C here. That's pretty warm. Now, concurrent with the birds, multi-species, we're having them wash ashore here on a regular basis all across the north shore of the north shore of Norton Sound is a thing going on right now, and it looks like the birds are in poor body condition. So, like I say, Liz knows about that, and we're hoping that somehow you'll tell us what's happened with the water and why this is where that's coming from. And noise. So I think also, Catherine, people are very interested in those large tankers, and right now there's a whole bunch of ship traffic going on, but it started for just for your benefit around June 23rd. We started really seeing those ARC 7 ice capable carriers really pushing in. That's when they started to come back down through the Strait. I don't know if you've been tracking that, but noise is a big issue, and we're seeing 2 of these. I've lost track of them right now. We've been seeing 2 southbound per week, just southbound, and then they were starting to cycle back through. It takes them about a month round trip once they leave Sabetta to get back to Sabetta. And they have been, so now we have like ostensibly 3 or 4 of these going through the Strait per week. So it's on top of everything else. So you may be really interesting. And I guess so we'll really look forward to, I know this was the prelim about what the cruise is all about and the joining of the forces. And it's really exciting to hear this is underway, and touch wood on all your travel and get going on that. And we'll really be interested. I think this is going to be another very interesting year. So anything you guys find is going to be exciting.
Yeah, I would just add that, Phyllis, we have Catherine Lalonde, a sediment trap on her M8 mooring, which is southwest of St. Lawrence Island, as well as the Chukchi ecosystem up in the northeast. And they're both, which that allows you to catch, as Catherine was saying, the phytoplankton and zooplankton, and carbon export over a whole year. So that information will be coming out of the water and will be processed this fall. So I think that'll really provide some, what's happening with the biology along with the physics at those particular south of St. Lawrence and in the northeast Chukchi Sea.
And to get back,
it looks like no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to get back at your question of noise. So my analysts have finished looking at the moorings we pulled out of the water last year for the few we were able to get. And it surprised me looking at the vessel presence compared to other years, because we were predicting that it would be less because of COVID, but it actually looks like we pulled them halfway through the open water season last year in like August, September, and it looks like it's even higher amounts of vessels. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and that might fit with what you're saying with these tankers and the Russian ships going by.
And there's also Russian military in the area now that it's ice free, and we're having some stuff going on there. So you won't see them on the AIS, but you might hear things. We had a gunnery exercise in the Strait west of Big Diomede for 3 days, 25th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I don't know if the weather was bad. We did hear there were noises reported after those dates, so maybe they pushed it. But I don't know if you'll pick up that kind of stuff with your equipment, but
If it's loud enough, we could hear it underneath the water. The interesting thing about what we do is that if somebody turns off their AIS, we're still going to hear them going by. So that'll be
go get them.
to see.
No, thank you, because it is of great interest right now, that the amount of ship traffic, especially last winter, too.
You have a question from Jackie on the chat.
I do. How have the local fisheries been going this year? Are you finding cod in the crab pots as the last few years? So the local fisheries, our local fisheries is salmon, halibut, and until last year was our first year for Pacific cod that did really well. I do not know the status of the Pacific cod fishery right now, because the news has been all about our salmon fishery. So the salmon fishery here is a small fishery out of Nome and Eastern Norton Sound, Unalakleet, and it has been extremely poor. The chum salmon is usually our moneymaker, and for the few people that fish, and we were at 5% of what was forecasted last I looked a few weeks ago, and that really hasn't improved. Chum should have been done, and they probably pretty much are as far as that fishery goes, and it was very low. Our next one was sockeye. Pink salmon. So pink salmon, we were at record levels. We've been at record levels for the last few years, and that prompted Icicle Seafoods to come north on a test fishery. And they have a 300 and something foot processor that they have positioned in Eastern Norton Sound. And I flew over that ship on opening day, and they had a freighter right tied next to it. And they are having a very difficult time. It is a bright spot, though, I think, for and I don't know, KNOM and Nome Nugget, stop me if I'm wrong here. You guys probably know more than I do up to date. Do you guys have anything on the Pacific cod? Nome Nugget, KNOM.
I don't have anything on the cod, but I've heard a lot about the pinks recently. I know that they were really expecting a much better year than they actually had. I think they also were looking at about 20% of what was anticipated in terms of catch.
Thank you, Julia. And for our sockeye salmon, it has also been difficult. Our largest sockeye river is the Pilgrim River, and that has been closed for subsistence for net fishing. So, and king salmon, I wouldn't even take a stab at that. That was early. So there's a lot of people in Nome that are hoping for a good silver run. They're just some people are catching them rod and reel locally here. So as far as the cod, though, I don't know.
What about crab?
We don't have a crab. We don't have any buyers this year. So
Okay.
our CDQ group, which has the processing plant, based on the numbers of the returns of crab. Last year we didn't have a buyer, and this year we don't have a buyer. So and they're making that conscious decision to hold until the crab population is able to rebound.
They're expecting that to rebound next summer, I believe. They said that a lot of the crabs that they've been seeing the last couple of years are not regulation size yet, but they will be, getting bigger. So they're hoping that next summer they'll have enough of a significant size to be able to have a fishery.
It would be good. We haven't had a fishery since 2019 for crab. That's pretty significant here. That was one of our.
The 2019 fishery was recently declared a fishery disaster for the red king crab as well. So even though we had that fishery, it wasn't successful.
Right on, Julia. You got it. No nugget. You're on it. You guys report it. It's great. Julia, do you have any question as we're going in? All these guys are going north to do their science, and we'll see them in the fall. Is there anything you in particular, since you're kind of new to the whole thing and have been hit with all these stories all summer, do you have anything that's?
I'm curious what you all hope to gain from the partnership with each other.
So I'll let Phyllis, she can say a few words, but no, it's great. I mean, we do different components that allow us to build a synergy. So physics and the zooplankton get done by EcoFOCI and the marine mammals. And then we're coming through with like the bottom up look with the the benthic system, but the observing system also has physics to chemistry and biology. So it allows us to leverage the expertise in the two programs. So I think that's what makes it successful. Plus then you embed these transect lines with all these time series moorings.
Yeah, more or less what Jackie said. The other thing is, especially right now with COVID, ship time and going north is very difficult. And since we both are doing ecosystem, it just broadens what we can do. Historically, we did not do the benthic work, which is what Jackie and Lee do. And so doing everything together, it saves ship time in the long run because it's mainly transit. This cruise is, most of the days are spent transiting. The number of days we actually do sampling is pretty minimal. And so it's this transit far north. I mean, it's such a huge area. And so it's optimizing our resources. It's also optimizing or minimizing our impact on this ecosystem. And then it improves the science. We're now doing this as a group and we make a huge sweep of measurements now. And we answer a lot of each other's questions by being able to integrate it.
And I'll add, Julia, the people that are on these cruises, especially this one where, it's offshore quite a bit and it's going into the northern realm through the Bering Strait, it has, the top level people on it, the people that have been working in this region for, well, the region being the Arctic, Bering Strait, Northern Bering Sea, that have been doing this for decades and have a really big picture and a long, even though they look so young, you wouldn't believe it, but they have a long history and have seen the timeline of everything going by. Right now, to me, that getting them all on one ship, and as Phyllis says, a lot of time they're just sort of waiting for the next moment they can do their work. To have all those minds coming at this issue of what's happening right now, having the freedom to talk, having the freedom to sort of go outside the box in their thinking and really chatted up ideas. Boy, I think that is the best thing to come out of squeezing everybody onto a relatively unusual looking vessel. It was the vessel that's on the cover of this opening slide. I don't know if you can show it again, Catherine.
I think one
But
other
actually,
point
really-
I'd make, Gay, about this is that the
I'm
Distributed
serious.
Biological Observatory is bringing in international participation too. So it's not just
Okay.
US taxpayers. But on this most recent trip, we were on the Canadian icebreaker, Sir Wilfrid Laurier, last month. And we bumped into the Korean icebreaker while we were up there. We had to take turns.
Not physically, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there they were on the horizon. So this was right after running into the U.S. Coast Guard ship, the Midget. So yeah, so there's some international leveraging that's going on that is making this, generating much more data and interesting scientific findings.
And this is a unique vessel here. It's a supply vessel. It's normally bringing things up and down the coast of Alaska or anywhere in the Gulf or the Atlantic. And on the back of that, it's going to be all the living vans, the science vans, the winches, everything it's going to be a traveling community. And so most everything happens between the last 8/10 of that ship is all the science activities, except for Liz, who's going to be looking at birds on the forward, up in the forward part of that ship. That's about all I can say.
Well, I hope you have internal cell phone service so you can all talk to each other at the same time. That'll be interesting with container vans. But I hope you give Catherine Berchok the biggest room, because not only did she do tonight's Straight Science, but she actually saved last year's. She was the star of the cruise as well.
Yep, that's
Last
right.
year's
No, she definitely was. There are a few.
I didn't have to do any benthic grabs though.
That's okay.
All right. Any other questions from anybody? in the audience. I see Kathy, you're on, and I'm interested. I saw the automated, I've seen those before. I just didn't have any idea what they are costing, and Jackie put that in the box, but
Yeah, I think you're
something to
talking
think
about
on
the,
there.
yeah, I think you're the Cytobot, Catherine, she was asking about that, where you're gonna look at the HABs will flow through. I think that's Lisa Eisner's part of the component you were talking
Yeah,
about.
so we are going to do the classic water sampling too from the CTD, where we count harmful algal bloom species at each station. So the PSP producing and the domoic acid producing. But then in addition, yeah, Lisa's going to be running that IFCB, which allows them to look at phytoplankton images. And it's a new thing that she's going to be doing this time because they got a new instrument. But it's something that I think can be left out on its own at another time, which is why they're trying to see how it works.
Right. Good.
And I did want to address KNOM again about their question of how the regular person can get interested. So I would like to have discussions of what kind of data we're able to provide and sort of talk to people and have them see what kind of data we have, and maybe it'll spark some interest of what they might be interested in contributing or participating in. But until we can get our data to local residents, that it's going to be a mystery of what we collect. So we'd welcome the opportunity to talk.
I think that's hugely important, Catherine, because I think people actually, the raw data results are actually really important. And this came up with the race division when they wanted to not present until they had the story all summed up in the paper written. But here you guys are going offshore, and that's a real advantage because we don't know what's going offshore. We're on the coast in this region. However, people have a very long-term data set locally, regionally, about different parameters that may not even, Western science doesn't even know to tap into. And so that the data that Lyle was bringing back, for example, the NOAA race division with their fisheries information, was really important. And he realized, I thought I had to give the whole story, but actually the results, people are already plugging that into what regionally we know might be, this is connected to this, is connected to this, even if, I don't know how to put it, people say Western science or science that's coming from afar may not know the nuances there. And so it could be something as unusual as people were focusing on a beluga issue in Eastern Norton Sound, and it turned out, rightly so, the question was being asked locally, well, what do you guys know about the beavers? And the beluga biologists were having trouble figuring out, why are we talking all of a sudden about beavers? It actually made sense when you realize the beavers are changing the ecosystem in Eastern Norton Sound. They're changing the habitat. They're changing the fish that are in the outflow of the river. And so the belugas are shifting up. I don't know whether they were going up or down, but so getting that sort of information, even chunking it and giving a little brief, this is what we were collecting. I think that's incredibly important. And if we can get a dialogue on that, absolutely. That's what we try to do here. Good weather tonight, but yeah, absolutely. Take advantage of having the regional media here too, for later, if you want.
And I have just a really quick comment. I graduated from the University of Maryland in December, so I'm really excited to see my alma mater involved in some of this research up here.
Oh, that's
Well,
great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to talk with you, and yeah, that's great. We might have to invite you to come and give a talk at our end, now that we're going back into in person, maybe.
Yeah, you guys should get in touch with the Diamondback. That's where I got my start in journalism.
Oh yeah. We had a little feature article a few years back that was in there in that newspaper. Yeah, we've been here since 2008. Before that, we were in Tennessee for 20 years, but we both got our PhDs in Fairbanks, so we kind of feel like Alaska is sort of a second home, especially when it's hot this time of year. We're looking forward to going again.
Careful what you wish for. Like I said, 26 this morning.
Oh, I know. No, weather could be an issue.
And quick question for you, Kathy, because we are with the heat temperatures we're getting off the bottom from the NOAA bottom trawl survey from the race division data. And we're putting out a tremendous amount of fresh water right now from our rivers. So we have had a terribly rainy July, and August has been a little bit of the same. We're just coming out of it. And is there anything that sort of, other than the temperature being 8+ C on the bottom, is there anything that in that extensive freshwater plume that would be
Yeah.
of caution or of interest?
I think it's certainly something to think about, the freshwater part. I don't have a good answer right now on what that might mean. Certainly things are going to be flowing in, and even nutrients and things. But the bottom temperatures being 8,
Plus,
based on our laboratory studies, the ones done at Woods Hole with cysts, that it only needs to be 6 to start germination, and then there is an increase in germination rates as you go higher from 6 degrees up to probably about 10 or 12. So it's pretty important to be thinking about that 8 degree means that there can be more cyst germination than there has been in the past, which is seeding blooms, which is the scary. That's what the risk we're thinking about.
all right. Thank you. Anyone else? I guess that's it. We lost Dean. I thought he'd ask a good HABS question, but I'm gonna go take off and get a water sample, actually, Kathy, right tonight.
Oh, good. Yes.
Yeah, it's sunny. There might be something going on. Finally.
Yeah.
With oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say for the cruise folks here, I don't know if I've shared that with you guys yet, but in addition to the cruises, what Gay's kind of getting at is that we have several places in the communities where they're taking samples now once a week. We're just trying this, and just sort of a scoop of water at a location and lugals, and then making counts for the toxic species. So that'll be interesting to see if it's working, if we can see something. And that also might play into looking at how things change with freshwater input versus less. So
We got fresh water.
So go get that sample.
Yeah.
Right.
With that, I'll let everyone go. Our next speaker is on the 18th, which will be a Wednesday. It's Devin Johnson. He's with the Gyrfalcon. He's a recent PhD grad, and he's been studying our raptors here in the Seward Peninsula, golden eagle, Gyrfalcon especially, and I think it's rough-legged hawk. And they're looking at how they're looking at diet through isotopes, but how the land animals are changing here as a response to the environment that we're seeing. How is that shifting? Because each one of these birds of prey has a certain niche to all get along, and there's things happening right now. So that will be on the 18th. If anyone's got an interest on that, tune in at 6:30. For the audience, thank you for everyone going on the cruise. Oh, I'd love to be a fly on the wall because all you guys are so smart and have that big picture that seriously, don't laugh. That big picture of everything coming at us and getting at that more, and you're all great. So
Well, thanks, Kay, for being such an advocate. But I do want to also thank Catherine for doing such a great part of this talk, and everybody who joined in. I think we're on our way. It'll be an interesting month.
and I forgot to add, because Catherine is pulling the weight here, do write in, give her some love in the chat box, because it's always nice when you're the speaker to get a little something, because it's not easy to be a speaker. Oh, Juliet's giving you a clap there.
Thank you. And just to remind everybody, if there is something that you think of in the next several weeks before we start the cruise that you would like us to include on our daily reports, just reach out to me, or Gay if you've forgotten where my contact information is. She can pass it along to me.
Yeah, and thank you so much, Catherine, because you're making yourself as accessible as anybody can. So appreciate that. We all appreciate that.
Bye.
Okay,
With
good
that,
night.
have a good night. Thanks for
Okay.
dropping in.
Yes.